This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on Union Cabinet decisions. The participants are Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and Rinku Ghosh, journalist.
At a time when the National Capital Region is under a bout of unprecedented pollution, obviously, the Cabinet decision too couldn't help but reflect that. So, the Union Cabinet today approved a resolution whereby the International Solar Alliance, set up and initiated Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has decided to include more member countries, this time from the UN. All countries listed under UN will now be open to membership to the ISA. That's one of the foremost decisions coming out of today's cabinet meetings. The others, of course, relate to the transport cooperation with Russia regarding the modernization of our railways and its high-speed corridors, the renaming of an airport in Orissa. Jharsuguda Airport will now be called Veer Surendra Sai to iconize a tribal leader. We don't do that much. Then there is an agreement, an approval given to the agreement between India and Morocco on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. And a little for those planning a vacation, the Cabinet has also approved a tourism cooperation with Korea. Mr. Iyer, can we just begin with the International Solar Alliance and the approval to expand its membership to include countries that are members of the United Nations?
Yes, I think this is one of the very significant decisions because International Solar Alliance, or ISA, is a intergovernmental treaty-based organization of countries which lie between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. And the Prime Minister recently addressed the first assembly of this alliance in Delhi in the first week of October, where he was looking at this kind of alliance of countries that can fully tap the solar energy because they have very strong daylight. So the idea is, as the Prime Minister put it in first assembly, was that this should become like OPEC countries. Solar alliance should become like the oil, petroleum exporting countries, so that they are able to tap the solar energy, increase their inbuilt capacity, go for technological renovation, and also build up new know-how to transfer technology and receive technology for producing those solar cells, whose costs have been gradually coming down. So this is a very big alliance, and all these countries are committed to the climate deal which was reached in Paris. So therefore, just as OPEC is meeting world crude requirements, 50% of the crude requirement, this group also wants to ensure that at least each of these countries are able to produce enough power using solar energy. And India is itself becoming the most preferred destination for investment in solar power. There are foreign companies which are willing to invest in huge fields of solar cells so that a lot of it can be produced. And India's own target is to ensure that 40% of its total energy requirement comes from the non-fossil fuel by 2030.
And in fact, the Prime Minister himself has committed to generating 100 gigawatts of power by 2022 by using solar energy. And if you can shed some light as to the potential for solar energy itself in India, when there is so much talk about crop burning and waste burning and over-dependence on thermal sources of energy, how can realistically we look at the potential of solar energy to be harnessed for our domestic use?
India is one of those fortunate countries that has a lot of sunlight, and all of this sunlight appear to go waste, particularly during our summer months when the skies are clear. There's a lot of sunlight coming in. So therefore, if we can harness this solar energy, the energy that is coming from the sun, by setting up a lot of these production units, it can be at the cottage level or it can be at a cooperative level, so that particularly our Gram Panchayats in this hot belt can make use of. But what has been prohibitive so far is the cost of these initial cost of setting up a solar power unit. So the government's effort is to see that some of this cost is brought down so that more and more people can switch over to this. At a time when we are looking at opening ATMs in the village areas, we are looking at internet connectivity, we are looking at creating more production centers in small villages, which all require use of electricity. So if we can generate a model where we can popularize use of solar energy, then we would be meeting a lot of this requirement, also meet our deadline as far as the Paris Climate Deal is concerned.
And also maybe we could incorporate some of our corporates also in generating some solar projects or in manufacturing or rolling out solar cells. So the corporates too could be part of this initiative. It could be a private-public partnership of an unprecedented scale if we intend it to be.
And in fact, in the previous meetings we have seen, the cabinet meetings, several concessions have been given. In the budget also, a lot of concessions were given for setting up the solar units, including tax incentives, and this has been done. In fact, in that first assembly of the International Solar Alliance, it was India's proposal that the current membership, which is limited to just 121 countries, should be expanded to include all the 193 members of UN. Because the whole idea is, if India can generate this solar energy, and if it can be...
And the demand too. We are a populous country with an enormous energy demand.
Yeah, and if this can be packed in power cells, these cells can in turn be taken to those areas where solar energy cannot be produced. So the whole idea is the talk of oil, petroleum exporting countries. So similarly, we can do this, try to export solar energy by packing them in cells. That is the idea. Because the whole effort is to see that, to convey the message to the world that this is the best time to invest in renewable energy, and India's whole intention is to also create robust solar components manufacturing ecosystem. Because what is needed is those voltaic cells, you need those platforms, then you need storage facilities, and all these require a lot of investment and also
a lot of R&D too.
So the idea is to create local manufacturing capacity for solar panels.
And also this is a project very dear to our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and he in fact initiated this with France, then French President Hollande. He is very much committed to this future of ensuring a clean energy source.
Yeah, because India is actually working on a proposal called the National Energy Storage Mission. First you create the demand, then you go in for indigenous manufacturing of these solar components, then you encourage innovation and provide all other policy support. Ultimately, people look at solar energy as a sustainable way of meeting our energy requirements.
So from energy now to the next big mover of our economy, and that is the railways. And so the cabinet appropriately today was apprised of the MOU between India and the Russian Federation for the development of cooperation in transport education. Now that is a big area. What transport education essentially involves, it means training, streamlining operations. Along with that, it was also apprised of the cooperation with Russian Railways for railway speed corridors. And this, I guess, includes the project for upgrading the Nagpur-Secunderabad section, where you can raise passenger train speeds up to 200 kilometers per hour. And, of course, creating a single traffic control center for multimodal transport. So these are some key highlights of the cooperation with the Russian Federation. If you would like to shed some light on how this will impact the overall transport scenario in the country.
These two things that were given approval by the cabinet, both the memorandum of understanding and there is a memorandum of cooperation. So there are two aspects, and these two were something which was initial during the recent visit of President Putin of Russia. So the one is looks for to share the latest development in terms of technology between the two countries, both Indian Railways and the Russian Railways. And the idea is to somehow help and share technology that can help in upgrading. And the second one, which is actually the memorandum of cooperation, which is involving Nagpur-Secunderabad railway line, which you said. The idea is, of course, one hand you have the high-speed trains, which is popularly known as the bullet train. That is a project which is taking shape in the western sector. Now, this particular project is known as what is called semi-high-speed trains, which is the trains that are capable of running at 200 kilometers per hour. Right now, our trains are running at anywhere between 100 to 120. Okay. And sometimes in some sectors, they even go up to 130 kilometers per hour. So therefore, this whole idea is what kind of technology will be needed to run these trains in terms of livestock, in terms of rolling stock, in terms of track renewal and track improvement. Then the other aspects which are part of this memorandum is, one is, to go in for a technology which will have single traffic control mechanism or centers, as well as signal and locking system. Then there is also a provision for Indian railway officials and Russian railway officials to visit each other's centers where higher education is provided in the railway sectors, and creating multi-modal platforms. Because Russia has a vast railway network, particularly in terms of freight handling. We have seen several documentaries particularly on the Siberian network and how it moves from one end to the other end of the vast European continent. So similarly, India is looking at that kind of high-speed freight trains. Already we have seen the new trains that are coming up in Madhepura. They are of the capacity of more than 12,000 horsepower, which are capable of hauling heavy weight, number of freight cars. So here also we are looking at Russia, because Russia is one of the countries which has a very efficient railway system, and India is similarly a vast network, and it's one of the heavily dense network. But India is looking for a technology that is modern, that is latest, because here the concern is safety as well as speed, along with economy in running the system.
Absolutely, and there is a need for the transport education that is of a high casualty in our country at this point of time, because our staff need to be trained. We still rely on a lot of manned systems. All are not mechanized, especially in the outlying areas. And so this education program could actually help in training our staff and bringing them up to speed, don't you think?
Reskilling of our railway officials and railway employees, that is one challenge. I think the bigger challenge is we need huge investment in terms of renewing our tracks. Track renewal is a very big exercise. Already we have seen the previous meeting, Cabinet took decisions for complete electrification, because we have the trunk routes already electrified, Delhi, Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, or Delhi, Kolkata. These are already electrified, but there are other sections where electrification is going on, and gradually they are trying to phase out the diesel, because this is also part of our commitment to climate control. We reduce those emission of carbon dioxide. So this is one aspect where we need technology for train renewal. We need huge investment for bringing in more modern coaches, modern locomotives. And of course, in order to handle all this, you need very top-grade, efficient signaling system. Today, there is no more other countries where modern signaling has come. There is very little of human actual monitoring. Of course, there are experts who are handling the system, but largely it is automated. So though India is looking at kind of cooperation with countries like Russia, where we can share technology, because we are also investing a lot in developing our signal system. We have seen similar agreement between India and Indonesia recently.
The other important thing that actually comes out is the renaming of the Jharsuguda airport, again iconizing a local tribal leader. So politically that is very significant. The Union Cabinet by this move acknowledges the tribal leader of Odisha and commemorates the airport.
Surendra Sai is a household name in particularly Western Odisha. But there are so many heroes of our freedom struggle in different parts of the country who have not got their due, who remain somewhat unsung men, because there has not been so much of focus on particularly in those areas where their contribution has been tremendous. Like you have Birsa Munda in Jharkhand, you have Virendra Sahi in Odisha. So there are so many leaders, particularly even in the south, even in Bengal. Bengal had produced some great names. But equally there were others who made a lot of sacrifices for the cause of our freedom. So by naming an airport, particularly Jharsuguda is that part of Western Odisha, which is a tribal belt, which is a Santal belt. And recently Jharsuguda has come in the map of this government's proposal for the regional air connectivity. New airport coming there and named after this well-known freedom fighter of that region is a way of paying homage and tribute to the freedom fighter.
The agreement between India and Morocco on legal assistance in criminal matters, I think it concerns matters of internal security as well and in controlling terrorist organizations.
I think we have been signing this kind of bilateral agreements with many countries, particularly in West Asia and in the other parts of the world, because increasingly with our trade and commerce, there are a lot of occasions or incidents which require mutual cooperation. So the whole idea is to see that our enforcement officials and as well as that of countries like Morocco are able to jointly cooperate and check major crimes.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer.
You were listening to a discussion on Union Cabinet decisions. The participants were Shekhar Iyer, political analyst, and Rinku Ghosh, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website news.air.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.